Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at CPA Academy. We have a good one for you. This is how to build capacity in 2018 with offshoring. We have the outsourced accountant here. Nicholas will be presenting. We also have Ross, and then we actually have a special guest, Tyler at Measured Results CPAs. I'm going to hand it over in just one moment. Hey, there's Nicholas. Hey, Nick, how are you doing? How about we do an audio check right now and say hello to the audience?
Hey, welcome. Can you hear me? All good.
How you doing, everybody?
Perfect. Sounds good. Looks good. And I'm going to hand it over to Nicholas and Tyler in just one moment. Before I do, we're going to do some housekeeping. Thanks, guys, for checking in. So this is a 1-hour webinar, one CPE, and we're going to go over how to ask questions. We'll let you know how you get your CPE and let you know about your handout. So let's go over to that GoToWebinar control panel. You should see that on the right side of your screen. There's a question pane right there. If you wouldn't mind saying hello, let us know what brings you here today. How familiar are you with outsourcing? If you want to let us know what part of the country or world you're joining us from, that is good as well. In that same area where there are multiple handouts, these are also available in your account at cpaacademy.org. You can click those PDF links and download right now. While you guys are typing into that question panel, I'm going to talk about your CPE. Like I said, this is a 1-hour course, one CPE. In order to get that credit, you need to do 2 things. Attend this session and then answer the polling questions. There will be 4 total polls. We're going to launch those periodically. They'll pop up on your screen. You just select the radio button that best fits your answer and submit, and you are good to go. We'll try and get that CPE processed a little bit later today. We'll also be sending you information on the recording of this webinar a little bit later as well. All right, and then for questions, we're going to try and have time right at the end of this session for Q&A. So any questions you have, please post them into that question panel. So we have Jonathan, we got Michigan, we got California, we got people from all over. So thank you. Looks like everything is working for our audience. So that is my cue to step aside. So Nicholas, thank you so much for being here today. The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thanks for having us, Nathan, and welcome to everyone joining us today. Today we're going to talk about how to build capacity in 2018 and how offshoring may fit into this. It's been quoted recently that the upcoming tax season is going to be a challenge, as they all are, but mainly this year due to a variety of factors such as staffing, obviously the new tax legislation, increasing client demands, the delayed delivery of vital client information on tax preparers, and a lot more. But now more than ever, firms are going to need to think outside the comfort zone and explore solutions that are not necessarily new, but that might be new to them. So we're here today to give you some insights into how firms have been solving these solutions with using offshoring, or what we call building a highly successful global team. Whether you're already outsourcing, offshoring, or wondering how to get started, we hope that you can take a lot out of today's content, and we're always available to answer any questions after today if you do have any further. But that will prompt me. If you do have any more questions, please pop them into the question box and we'll either answer them as we go, or at the end we do have an allocated slot of about 10 minutes for Q&A. So with me today is one of our wonderful clients, Tyler. So welcome to the webinar, Tyler. We'll get on to his story in a little bit. And I'm Nick Sinclair, the founder of the Outsourced Accountant, and I'll talk a little bit about my background as well. So who we are and who I am and why are we talking to you today. So I was a financial planner and accountant in Australia for 12 years. I had my own financial planning and accounting finance firm in Australia, and we were really struggling with our own capacity and getting the right staff to do the right work. So we originally looked back at many years ago getting an offshore team in the Philippines and built out our back office. So we were 38 staff in Australia and 38 staff in the Philippines is what we started with, and we grew our business from there. And as I started to do more and more of this in the Philippines, I had a lot more of the people in the industry coming to me saying, Nick, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Can we put people in with you, and can we go along that journey with you? So we ended up setting up the Outsourced Accountant in 2013. After our first year of running, we had 100 staff, and 4 years in, we're now up to 700 staff. So what do we actually do? We are the leader in outsourcing in the Philippines for accounting firms globally. So we help accounting firms to become more efficient by employing full-time people that are based and work in our offices, and we really help firms become more efficient, become a lot more structured, and enable firms to become more valuable to their clients. And we'll talk a little bit more around how we do that today. But with us today, we're lucky enough to have one of our wonderful clients, Tyler, who's been on this journey with us for a bit over 12 months. Normally would bring Tyler in at the back end of the webinar, but Tyler is actually at an event today, and and I'll get him to explain a little bit more where he is today. But Tyler's joining us at the start so that we can talk through his case study, because it is quite amazing. So welcome again, Tyler, from Measured Results. And do you want to just kick off, Tyler, but just give us a little bit of a background about yourself and your firm?
Yeah, so I'm a partner at Measured Results, as was mentioned earlier, partner with my father, and the firm opened in 2004. I have been on with the team for a few years now, and we're located right in the middle of California, about an hour and a half inland from San Francisco. We recently made the switch to we're working exclusively with business owners. We no longer take only personal returns, and particularly in the real estate realtors agents space. Kind of in the last year, we've had year and a half or so, we've really had an explosion. Just to give you an idea, we started 2017 with 4 team members, including myself and my father, and we're currently at 12, looking to hire another 2 or 3 in the next couple months here. So we've really seen a lot of growth. That seems to be a common theme with a lot of CPAs I've spoken with in the United States, as far as a lot of growth, maybe not quite the level we've had, but it seems to be like there's a lot of demand out there. The key is meeting that demand with supply on getting the work done, and that's been a challenge of ours.
Yeah, wonderful. So that probably leads me into the next question, Tyler. Why did you look at setting up an offshore team? What was the main reason that you explored that as an option, and what have been the challenges or opportunities that you've been facing along that journey?
Yeah, so it's we started really hitting the marketing pedal on gas on the pedal right around the middle of 2016, I would say, and started getting a lot of new clients coming in towards the end of 2016, and we were looking around saying, where are we going to find these people? We live in we're located in the Central Valley of California. It's more rural, so there's not a lot of up and coming CPAs and tax accountants in that area. And so we had a need and a demand to fill. We had to get the work done that we were selling. And so we thought, we're part of this CPA kind of coaching and mastermind group called Panalytics. And then Rob Nixon, the founder of that, introduced us to Nick and Toa, and decided to give that a shot. And so now we started with 2 out of the gate in hiring in January and early February, and then hired another 2 around July. And so as far as opportunities, it's the cost of having a CPA in the Philippines compared to the cost of someone here, even if you can find them, is dramatically lower. There are some challenges with figuring out, are we going to have them on our time zone where they're there during our day versus in the evening? And there are pluses and minuses to both of those. We have our Filipino team members working their normal days. So they get in at 3 o'clock our time and then work till about midnight our time. So we have a little bit of overlap, and then kind of set them on their merry way, and they do the work, and then we show up in the morning and it's mostly done. So
excellent. That's an interesting point. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that during today's presentation around accounting firms actually running 24 hours a day now. So it's a scary thought, but I'll talk more a little bit about that a bit later. Tyler, so you've obviously gone through some rapid growth in the last 12 months, obviously from 4 onshore staff to 8 onshore staff. So you're doubling your staff locally, but then also growing your team, you could in essence say 100% offshore and building out a global office. So what are the types of staff that you've employed through us? What are their qualifications? But more importantly, what sort of work are they doing for you?
For sure. So the qualifications are actually very good. It's been so of the 4 team members, 3 are CPAs. One of them has about 14 years of experience, and he's our senior accountant. The other 3 range from 2 years of experience to 5 or 6 years. 3 of them are CPAs, and so in the Philippines, they actually rank your CPA exam score among everyone who's taking the exam in that window. And so one of our team members was ranked 8th nationally on her CPA exam, and she actually has experience in the Filipino branches of 2 Big Four firms, Deloitte and Grant Thornton. And then another that we hired earlier, about midway through the year, was a valedictorian of her class. She's also a CPA, and they're very sharp, do really good work. And so specifically, the type of work we have them doing is right now our S corporation returns, or any entity returns, and then monthly bookkeeping, and then they're doing all of our payroll too. So that everything from cutting paychecks for our clients to the quarterly payroll tax forms. And we're currently, this Saturday, our team member primarily in charge of payroll is going to be flying out for 3 weeks to help with all the year-end 1099s and W-2s in office to kind of get that face-to-face in-person training.
Wonderful, which probably leads on to my next question, which is, how did you get set up? What have been the main things that you did well to get the team up and running so fast and efficiently, and obviously adding value to your firm back in the US? And what are some of those key takeaways for the listeners that may be looking at starting this journey?
Yeah, definitely. The key is, I think it was huge. Last year we had our senior accountant and we flew him out for 3 weeks in February, which was right in the middle of our tax season or busy season, depending on the type of work your firm does. And that was huge, just establishing that relationship. When we were first doing our homework on offshoring, a lot of people told us that it's a good idea to fly out to the Philippines so that you get that face-to-face interaction. Instead, we opted to fly them out so that we didn't lose our own productivity. And when you think about the cost of putting someone up, plus the daily meals allowance, plus their monthly salary, it actually still ends up being a little bit less than the monthly salary you'd pay for a new hire here. So it wasn't like it was a huge cost to fly them out. Probably total for us flying them to California for the 3 weeks ended up being around $4,000 or $5,000. So we'd be paying a CPA that salary anyways. And that was huge because then he was able to take that knowledge that he learned and bring it back to the team. We're doing that again this year. As I mentioned, this weekend, one of our team members who's been with us for a full year is flying out for 3 weeks for the month of January. And in mid-February, we're flying out our other 2 team members, one of them for about 3 weeks, the other one potentially for the entire duration of tax season to really get her ingrained and trained up on corporate returns, but also kind of taking a messy set of books and cleaning it up, getting that hands-on training there, and then also looking towards training on 1040s as well. So I think flying out was a huge key. The other big key is we've got a phenomenal manager on our team who was willing to be available for questions late into the evening. So I think knowing that they do need a lot of hand-holding in those initial months. So either having them work on the same day as you, same time period as you for a couple months would be helpful, or being willing to have that availability to answer questions in the evening in those early months.
Brilliant insights. Thank you, Tyler. So next question, technology is obviously a big topic in the industry at the moment. How has obviously the need for technology these days is automating a lot of the processes and systems that we as accountants are doing. How has this impacted your, I suppose, need for an offshore team? Has it meant you need, obviously you've implemented a lot of technology in your practice. Has that meant you need less people, or what's it meant for your firm, and how's it allowed them to focus, I suppose, on growth and the growth that you've gone through, as opposed to having to do the tasks?
Yeah, so we about 80% of our, just to give you an idea on where we're at with technology, probably about 80 to 85% of our clients are on QuickBooks Online. We've got a few straggling desktop users, but we've decided we're going to charge them about 50% more this year, and we actually don't take on new clients that aren't willing to go web-based, just because of the increase in efficiencies. Every time we get an accountant's copy for QuickBooks, it just kind of makes us annoyed, frankly, now having to do the accountant's copies and all of that once we're used to the QuickBooks Online. And we've had no resistance with clients switching over for the most part. So what's been nice with that is, setting up the bank feeds, there's still some work to do with it, but having them be able to do it offshore has been huge. When we switched to offshore, we got everything on the cloud. So our tax prep software was on the cloud, and we now just switched to the web-based version of Intuit's tax prep software. What it's done for us is not so much reduce the need for team members, but allowed our team members to focus on growth-oriented activities. So we have what we call our 7-step tax solution, and it's a series of tax savings ideas that we introduce to our clients that help them save a bunch of money on taxes. And so as part of our tax prep process, because technology makes things easier, it takes a lot of the thinking out of the preparation of the return. So instead of the thinking going into the preparation, it's allowed the thinking to go into the planning and proactivity of how we can improve the service for our clients or help save them more money. And so it's really allowed us to leverage and improve our services rather than cut overhead, if that makes sense.
Certainly does. So you've had a full year, obviously, with us and your offshore team. How has it gone?
Well, I like to look at the scoreboard first, and our revenue for 2017 was 62% above 2016. And our before partner salaries and before partner comp profit increased 130%. So revenue is obviously very up at 60%, but profits are even better, and those more than doubled. So it's gone well from a numbers standpoint, from a just overall team member standpoint, and how it impacts the clients. We've had a couple clients that are maybe older that have had a little bit of resistance, but for the most part, we tell all of our new clients that we have an offshore team in the Philippines, and they just accept it, and they're actually a little bit envious of us that we've figured that out. So there's been a lot less resistance than we even thought when we start mentioning it to our clients. And I think in some ways it's a positive because they see us as being more pioneers. And that's one of our core values is continuous improvement. And so we're able to touch on that as a core value and how that relates to why we've gone offshore. So I think overall it's been a positive for us for sure. So
that's phenomenal numbers, results, and I suppose just from a firm point of view, it's just phenomenal results. So what are your overall expectations for 2018 or your key themes for your offshore team specifically?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're bringing everyone out. So hopefully getting at this point, by the end of March, every single one of our offshore team members will have visited the States and visited our office and done some time here. So really investing in that further, and then beyond that, we're hoping to really train up. Right now, they're doing a lot of the compliance and the plug and chug. Now that we've got a year into it on that, we're hoping to get them doing, like I mentioned, more of the thinking, where they can take a really, really messy set of books and dissect it and get it perfect for the client. And then also kind of taking our monthly bookkeeping from being more of a compliance service to a consulting service where our team member is putting more notes into, hey, these are your numbers compared to the same month last year. This is where expenses you're cutting or could cut, really having our offshore team prep those notes for us so that it makes it super easy to add a ton of value to our clients onshore. And then a continued growth. We increased 62% in 2017. We're looking to go another 50% or more in 2018 and continue that growth, probably adding another I was just doing our hiring forecast for 2018. Probably hiring another 2 to 3 offshore members and another 2 or so onshore members as well.
It's a phenomenal growth story, Tyler, and all I can say is congratulations to you and the whole Measured Results team. It's certainly very, very positive. I know that you are at the Panalytics event today, so I do thank you for taking your time to have a chat to us and the listeners today. So I'll let you jump off and get back to that session. But I just want to, I suppose, a bit of a summary from what I took from all of that around the success of Measured Results is the first one I really noticed is picking a niche and really driving towards that niche. I think that's too many firms just deal with too many people. Cloud technology is obviously a huge one. The automation and the efficiency of what these technologies can do for firms, but the firms are just not implementing these to really make the efficiency gains that can be there. And obviously then combining a global workforce with the first two is probably the combination of why your results are from a numbers point of view, are absolutely phenomenal. So congratulations, Tyler. Again, thank you very much for your time today. We do appreciate it, and we'll let you get back to the Panalytics event now, and I'll keep pushing through with some of the offshoring story for the rest of the listeners. So thanks again, Tyler, and we'll look forward to chatting to you soon.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. All right, take care.
Yes.
Bye.
So if anyone does have any questions that they do want to ask of Tyler, please pop them into the question box and we can get these answered and sent back to you at the end of it. So we'll get back into the presentation and what we'll cover off. So we'll talk about some of the key challenges offshoring can address. So these are the key challenges within your accounting firms. We'll talk about what leading firms are doing and how they are growing. The case study for setting up an offshore team and why it's something that you should consider, and proven steps for setting up a global team. A lot of people have gone down this path before and it hasn't worked for them, or they're even going through this process now and it may not be working as efficiently. So, you know, we've got a lot of firms that have been, we've had over 250 firms that are doing this with us that are making it work and making it successful. So we'll talk about some of the things that they're doing to help you along that journey if you are on that at the moment. And then we do have some time allocated for a Q&A session at the end. So before we get into that, we might just start with our first poll. So Nathan, if you can just run that poll for us. So poll question 1 is, do you already have an offshore team? Yes, we already have a team. No, but we have outsourced some tasks before. 3, decided to do it but not yet implemented. Need more information, or I'm against it philosophically. So Nathan, if you can run this poll, and we'll just see what comes through with the results. We'll open it up for about a minute. Okay, so a large amount of people on today's webinar, about a third have said that they have outsourced some tasks before. About a third or so, a bit over, or close to 40% are saying they need more information, which is great that we're running a webinar like this. And we have about 10%, which is not uncommon, saying they're against it they're against it as a whole. So we'll talk a little bit more around that as well. So Nathan, we might just close that one off. We're coming up to a minute, so thank you for that one. We are going to launch straight into our second poll. So we'll launch straight into our second one. What's your biggest offshore concern? Particularly for the people that are against it. What will my clients think? What will my team members think? How to get set up properly? What will the quality of work be like, and how secure will my client's data be? So we'll run live with this one again. Again, not surprising, a third of people are saying how secure will my data be, which we'll again talk about. What will the quality of work be like? Again, not uncommon. About 20% are saying what will my clients think, which again is not too uncommon. What is really interesting from this poll is the what will my team members think, because normally it rates quite high, but we've only got about 5% of the people on this webinar saying that would be something that would be a concern. Alrighty, Nathan, we might jump off that poll as well. We're going to jump straight into our third poll, which are, what are the top what are your top 3 challenges? So this is from a day-to-day basis. What are the top 3 challenges you have? Managing emails and phone calls. We commonly see accountants sitting in front of computers all day when they should be talking to clients all day. Client issues, meetings, calendar management, reporting and chasing data. So we may run that one live as well, Nathan, if we can just pop that one up. We'll give you about 30 seconds. Managing emails and calls is getting a massive chunk of today's listeners. Reporting and chasing data is, again, not uncommon. And again, we'll talk more about this a bit later on, but we see too many firms having their accountants chasing clients and reporting things that, client service assistants or people, even administration people in a global team could be looking after. Surprisingly, a lot of people seem to have client issues. So about a third of the responses are dealing with client issues as one of the major things. Yeah, some interesting results. Thanks for that, Nath. We might close that one off as well. And we'll talk about the first poll and what was covered off on this one. This is some results from a range of webinars that we ran last year. And these are a lot of the challenges that we're seeing in the industry is globalization or cloud is one of the big things that's really impacting the industry. Technology is got to be one of the biggest issues within the industry. There is so much cloud technology coming out, and then even if you look at like the Xero ecosystem, there's over 400 or 500 apps that now plug into Xero. So technology is a major thing in the industry. Customer expectations are, as we all know, they are changing with the advent of cloud technology and live data. Clients are now expecting things to be done quicker and faster. They're now expecting you to be available more than the normal 9 to 5. And we're seeing a lot of customer expectation challenges. One of the biggest things that we get told all the time, being obviously a provider of global team members, is that there's a real skill shortage. I know a lot of our clients will say they'll put an ad up for an accountant locally, and they get minimal applications, if any, and what applications they do get may not be the standards or the skills that they are looking for, which relates and links back straight into the cost of labour is only increasing. I had a new client from the US that I was speaking to prior to Christmas. They're one of the top 20 firms in the US from an employment and revenue number. And he said to me, one of the biggest challenges they have is that revenue's decreasing by roughly 5 to 7%, while the costs are growing by about 15% a year. So if they don't look at building a global workforce in the long term, then they won't be able to be around in the long term. So look, we understand that there's a lot of challenges. Obviously, the impact of the US, obviously the tax reforms is another key challenge, but offshoring can assist with a lot of this. It can give you immediate capacity. It's a long-term strategy. It's not a short-term solution, so it's not going to solve your workflow problems today, but it will in the long term. When you're looking at comparisons to local team performance, I know that was raised before. We commonly see that the offshore team are actually outperforming from a productivity point of view. The local teams, there's a lot less chatter. There's a lot more productivity happens in our offices, but a lot of that comes back also to the Philippines culture. And we'll talk a little bit more about a few of those other items as we go. So when we're looking at firms, one of the biggest things, and I speak around the world at a lot of accounting events, and one of the biggest things that I see is that accountants are just buried in workflow and regulatory changes. And one of the biggest challenges is, and we saw it from the poll earlier on that we ran, is that too many accountants are sitting in front of their computers just responding to emails and phone calls all day. They're not being proactive. Client issues are popping up and stopping you from doing what you should be doing, which is talking to clients, adding value to clients, and continuously growing your clients. If their businesses are growing, your businesses are growing. So we're seeing accountants are just not being proactive. The productivity is not at the percentages they should be. Accountants are working way too many hours and just not providing the value that potentially they could or should be. So what are some of the leading firms around the world that we're seeing doing from a point of view that is separating them from being different? And I think we're able to see, Tyler is setting a real example with, I spoke about it earlier, picking a niche, cloud technology, building a global workforce. What we're also seeing is with average firms, and I'll talk a little bit about average firms that we deal with. An average firm in Australia, 15 staff, and we're seeing it to be slightly bigger in the US. But the real good firms have a CEO or a leader that's not on the tools. None of their time is actually attributed to productivity work. It's all around how do we grow the business and running the business as a business. We're seeing that emails are getting filtered and reduced significantly, and I'll question you, how many emails a day do you get? We have a lot of clients that are managing their own inboxes, but as they start to build a global workforce, they look at, well, how can we implement someone in a global environment to run our emails so that we're not having to filter through 300 emails. We're only doing the 15 that actually need responses to clients. So it's giving a lot more work-life balance back to the leading firms. They have quality proactive time with their clients. So the best firms are spending a lot more time with their clients from an hourly basis when you look at it, and they're not necessarily always charging for this. They're definitely using cloud. They've got efficient processes, global teams and technology. All of that is sorted and working together. And they've got highly engaged staff across a global team. And what they're doing is getting the right people to do the right type of work in the right location. So a lot of the time, and it was raised early, chasing clients, how much time is spent by firms chasing clients for information. And most of the time what we see is that that's your most highly paid resources, being your accountants, chasing that up. And it just from a business sense doesn't make sense. So whether you have a client service staff member based locally, working with someone in an offshore team chasing this up, a lot of it's done virtually anyway. We see that obviously they're having strong profit and team growth. I mean, Tyler's a prime example, 4 staff to 12 staff, so 100% growth locally with 100% growth also in his global team. And the other part of it is that a lot of firms, and it's starting to happen now, particularly within our operation, we do run 24 hours in the Philippines. We're starting to see a lot more a lot more firms are starting to run 24 hours a day. So it's an interesting prospect to see that some of your competitors are able to turn around work a lot quicker, but that's only because they're able to run, in essence, 24 hours a day, and a lot of the processing work's getting done at night. One of the questions that has come through is, what accounting software do you use? I think that was for Tyler, and that has been answered that he does use Intuit, the QuickBooks product. So we'll keep skipping through the presentation, and we're talking really around a lot. We see a lot of firms that are trying to set up global teams or have started or tried offshoring in the past, but one of the things that they haven't been able to do is get it set up right. They may have chosen the wrong partner. They may have just not invested the time that is needed to really build it out. Firms are trying to deal with capacity issues, but too many are taking too long to get it started and set up, or just not getting it right. So we're going to talk around some of these things in the next few slides around how you can get an offshore team up and running faster. There's some great case studies, but you do need the support of your peers and people that are doing this. And that's one of the best things that we've been able to build, is a community of accountants that are doing this on a daily basis, that are working together. So why offshore? What's the case for offshoring? And I really see it as the journey that you have with a client. And a lot of firms are not maximizing the revenue they're making from their clients because they're trying to only offer a certain solution at the start. And what I really see with building a global team is that when you're getting a client in, you may only be doing the tax work. Once you've built that trust and that relationship with them, then you can then start to implement a new service with them. And that could be bookkeeping, or it could be a range of other services. And we're certainly seeing that with what Tyler was doing and what he spoke about his firm doing. But if you set up well, you can then move to growth by streamlining your processes, your people and your technology, and having a global team to be able to help with that certainly does help. And with improved capacity, you'll be able to obviously deliver a lot more value to your clients and focus on growth services. This obviously all leads to higher retention, more revenue, more profit, and the benefits and effects that flow on from there. So there are some, obviously, when you are looking at offshoring, what are the risks associated with it? Setting up the time to get your processes and systems in place. It is, we classify that as a medium risk. Typically what we find, though, is accounting firms just don't have systems and processes and consistency across them. So one of the biggest things when you are setting up a global team is actually having to look at how do you do things within your firm. Is there a way that you do it that everyone in your firm does it, whether they're in a global team or a local team? Because what we typically find is if there's more than one partner within a firm, means there's more than one way to do something. So you're not delivering consistency in the advice potentially, or in the way that you're delivering the results to your clients. So setting up a global team really, I suppose, eliminates that, because things are just done the one way that your firm does it, as opposed to however the people have done it in the past. Financial costs, it's a very low impact, obviously, due to the cost. Operationally, it's only going to improve your productivity. From a security point of view, which was raised earlier, security in the Philippines offices are normally 20 times more secure than offices, and we'll talk a little bit more about that around your own offices. And control is one of the things that is often raised. If I do have a global team, how do I control that? How do I treat them like my own employee? And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So we'll talk about the different types of models that there are available for you. There is offshoring, which is moving. Obviously, offshoring is just moving your processes outside of a country. There's normally two models that accounting firms will explore and have tried in the past. One is where you will send your physical work to a outsourcing provider. They will process the tax return or do the bookkeeping work for you completely, and then they will send the work back to you done. It's an ability for you to be able to send work ad hoc. You don't have to have full-time staff. Some of the challenges with this model is obviously you have no control over that staff member. The more successful that outsourcing provider is, it means the more staff they need, which means they need to train up fast, which means the quality of work often reduces. Within my own accounting firm, for the first 3 years of our outsourcing journey, we used different providers across India, Vietnam, where it was ad hoc basis, and we had some real challenges with the quality of work because the more successful the firms were, or the more work we gave them, obviously the turnaround times blew out and the quality of work dropped because they just couldn't keep up with the training. The other model, which is of the one that we offer, and it is one of the one that we've seen as growing the fastest across India, Philippines, and Vietnam, is where you do have your own dedicated team. So basically you're building another office for you, but it is based within our office in the Philippines. So you've got full-time support. You've obviously got local support within our own offices helping you along that journey. And we'll talk a little bit more around that as well. So how does dedicated outsourcing work? We've had firms that have been doing this along our journey for over the last 4 years, and you've seen some of the results of Tyler. And the firms that are making it work are doing exactly what Tyler's firm's doing, plus more. The types of clients that we deal with are top tier firms. So, they have hundreds and thousands of staff locally, and they're building global teams as well, right through to our some of our most successful clients are sole practitioners. So people that have left the firms where they were, gone and set out on their own journey. One of our sole partner practitioners that started with us a bit over 12 months ago, he set up his firm. It was him when he started. He's in Australia. He now has 7 staff offshore, and he has himself locally in Australia. So he's got a team of 8, and 7 of them are actually in what he calls his global office. But the thing with the dedicated outsourcing model is it's a long-term play, but you do get some immediate upside in in the productivity and the work that they can be able to get done. But it's really around picking the right work that they'll do. And we'll talk a little bit more around that. Why the Philippines, I won't talk too much about this, but when you're looking at why outsource, the country where you outsource to is critical. The biggest reason why I took my own accounting firm there originally was the English language. They are ranked in Asia as number one for English language and proficiency. There's a strong affinity with Western culture, particularly the US, with their connections with the Philippines, which has been a long-term connection. We see a lot of Western language is taught from birth in the Philippines, and they're very Americanized over there. Their operating hours work really well. I spoke earlier around productivity. They've got a really strong work ethic. They enjoy being busy as opposed to being quiet, and it is one of the biggest industries in the Philippines. There's 104 million people living there. There's over 3,000 CPAs coming out a year. There's over 100,000 accountants in the Philippines. So there's plenty of supply of good quality people. When we're looking at the business case for offshoring and we're looking at the pure business cost, and again, when we talk to firms around offshoring, we always say you never do this purely for the profit. You do it for all of the added benefits of increased productivity, increased capacity, being able to deliver more to clients. If you look after all of those things within your firm, then you're naturally going to make more profit because of it. And one of the biggest benefits that we give firms by offshoring is building capacity and freeing up time. But when you're looking at from a pure numbers point of view, from a salary point of view, US salary on average, $84,000 for an accountant. Philippines is $9,300 US a year. So you're looking at a saving of about 89%. From a bookkeeper, 75,000 locally, 9,000 globally. So when we talk about this, a lot of people say, look, I don't want to take roles offshore. I want to keep them onshore. I'm patriotic and I don't want to be doing that. And I completely understand, because with my own firm, I was exactly the same. I had 38 staff in Australia. I didn't want to reduce that team. I wanted to be able to grow that team while also growing a global team. And that was one of the things that we were able to achieve and you've seen it in Tyler's case study, they've grown their local team 100% in the last 12 months while also growing their global team 100%. And the biggest reason they've been able to do that is they're getting the right people to do the right tasks at the right costs. And I mentioned this earlier. How many of your staff within your own office are doing work well below what their charge out rates are? We commonly see accountants chasing up clients for information. Accountants are doing work that is, could be done offshore for $10 an hour, and their charge out rates are $100+ an hour. So I really challenge you, look within your firm at all of your team, including yourself, the partners, managers, look at what your charge out rate is, and then look at what you do on a daily basis. And is your charge out rate equivalent for every single task that you do during the day? And if not, what can you push down within your team locally? And if you imagine from the top pushes work down, and then the further down you go in your staffing locally, because you still need your graduates, you still need your junior accountants in the US. If we push all of that work down, a lot of that can then get pushed to your global team to do a lot of that processing and back end work around that. So a big challenge that we get from looking at the outsourcing journey is, what processes do I put overseas within my global team, and how do I get set up? And a lot of the challenges we have with firms is when they come to us, is they say, look, we're looking at this from an employee point of view. My employee here in my office can do all of these tasks. And what we say is, when you're building a global team, what you want to look at is not people and not what role it is, but what processes can you push to your global team. So it's really mapping out what are the core processes or tasks or steps within the tax process that you could send originally. What tasks should your onshore team not be doing, as opposed to what should they be doing? What tasks would your team enjoy to do but they're not doing. And one of the big things I love to do when accounting firms get me to come in and spend some time with their local teams when we're going through this offshore journeying is, write down on a piece of paper all the tasks that you do on a daily basis. And then from that, I get them to then work through what are the tasks that you enjoy doing that add value to your clients. And then if I was to give you an assistant today that was equally as skilled as you, what work would you get them to do in there so that you didn't have to do it on a day-to-day basis? And it's really interesting to see what your staff would probably put across there. The biggest thing is, what should be getting done for clients that isn't, and how much time are you spending with clients now versus what you could be doing. Don't overcomplicate it. Just start with a few. You don't need to complete 200 processes to get starting. You just need to create capacity initially with your offshore and global team so that you can then start to work and push more and more work. Tyler spoke about it earlier where some of the work that he's originally pushing over there was only more of the basic work, but now they're getting him to do a lot more of the high value work now that they've been there for 12 months. Start with your priorities. Where is your biggest capacity restraints at the moment? And it's not pushing the most complex work to your global team. It's pushing that work down to your local team, getting them more skilled, getting them more trained, and then continue to push the work overseas. Keep it really simple. Video as you go. So one of the biggest things we say with training is, film one of your team doing that work locally in your own office, and then that becomes a training video. From our own business point of view, we did 200 processes in a quarter. So we had our team build out a lot of these processes and videos, and we knocked over 200. It's surprising how many you can actually do once you start looking at from a very simple point of view around how do we make these processes become alive in our firm. So what are some of the tasks and roles that you can do with a global team? I won't go through all of these, but some of the basic, reviewing accounts, bookkeeping work, processing, if it's cloud-based technology, obviously processing and reconciling, data input, document conversion and processing, right through to the accounting services, right through to, again, Tyler mentioned some of these. They're now looking at these growth services, client support, and a lot more marketing, lead generation type of work. One thing I will say is if you're a partner and you don't have a PA, I can guarantee you that you're costing yourself significant amounts of time and capacity issues. If you want to, we ran a webinar on this last year and a range of case studies, but if you look at your charge out rate and anywhere between, we commonly see $200 and $500 an hour, the cost of an EA full time for a month, all they would need to do is save you 4 hours a month. I implemented my own EA 5.5 years ago offshore. She took my emails down from about 350 a day to approximately 10 a day now that I manage. If I didn't have her now, I would be working excessive hours, which many of you probably are during these tax seasons, purely because you're not doing the right type of work. You're getting buried in work that you really shouldn't be getting involved in, but you're having to because there's no one else to do it. So we'll jump on. Again, part of the offshoring journey when you're getting set up is what technology should we be using? Will you be using QuickBooks? Should we be using Xero? Like I said earlier, there's over 400 apps that now plug into these in the ecosystems. But what's going to make your firm most efficient? Cloud technology. If you're looking at bookkeeping and you're not using something like Receipt Bank, you're only able to deal with about a third of the clients. So common case study Receipt Bank uses, if you're not using cloud technology, a bookkeeper can on average deal with about 5 clients from surveys they've done. If you're using cloud technology, you can deal with 10 clients. If you're plugging in Receipt Bank and a global team, it's around 30 clients that each bookkeeper can deal with. So if you're looking at the revenue increase just by implementing technology, the efficiency gains that it can create is phenomenal. What we see a lot of firms using their global team for is actually to get these technology, the data input into them, getting them set up and running efficiently so that they can really add value to the firm. And then obviously that flows on to the clients. We still see a lot of resistance to cloud technology, but I can tell you now with automation and some of the stuff that Intuit's doing is phenomenal with AI. it's game changing. And if you're not on board with this, we're seeing the leading firms are really implementing this fast and getting the real value out of this. So when you're combining technology and a real efficient global workforce, it really adds to a practice that's going to grow fast and really increase capacity and deliver fast. So when you're getting set up with an offshore provider, obviously it's finding the right provider. We're more than happy to talk to anyone around that, but your global provider is going to provide you obviously with the talent, being the people, some of the training. They're going to work with you and assist you with things like that. Obviously, the day-to-day operations, there's a photo obviously on the screen now of one of our 5 offices in the Philippines, but we manage the HR, we manage the people side of it. We have you just really work with your team members to do the work that you're wanting them to do as part of the process and system. Some of the handouts that you'll be able to get from that panel today, it has some of these videos of our staff in the Philippines, so you can get an idea of what their language is like and their skills and background, as well as some other information. So jump into those handouts that are available to you. So Nathan, we'll just run into the 4th poll if we can, the 4th and final poll. We've got about 10 minutes to go, which we will answer some of the questions that have been coming through. So poll question number 4 is, for offshoring, what information would help you best? What roles and tasks others are doing, how to get set up effectively, how other accountants are offshoring, pricing, or team member profiles. We'll just run this one quickly if we can. Nathan, we'll just run that one. So we won't run it for too long, but how to get set up effectively is rating very high. How other accountants are offshoring. Probably the 2 biggest ones. Roles and tasks are the other one. Pricing is getting a few people as well. So a lot of this information can be found in the handouts, and I will run through a slide just before we wrap up in about 10 or 9 minutes time, where you can get some of this information. So thanks, Nathan. We'll close that poll off and I'll keep going. So Q&A. So if you do have a question, please pop them in the question box now, and we'll do our best to answer all of the questions that you send through. Some of these we've been answering as we go. So please pop in any questions that you do have now that you'd like us to answer live. Otherwise, we can certainly pop through into the next few. So some of the questions that have come through that have already been answered are, what type of fees do you charge? So we charge, when you're looking at outsourcing providers, you typically pay what's called a BPO fee, which is a fee to provide all of the office environment, the IT support, the HR support, the transportation for the employees, or a range of other things. So that ranges anywhere around $550 US up to about $650 US, depending on how many staff you have. So when you're combining the total cost of an offshore employee, you're looking at somewhat of around the $1,500 US a month. That's very generic. It does change for roles, so we can obviously go through that with you in a lot more detail outside of it. So some of the questions coming through is around security. So security is one of the biggest questions we do get from new clients to us, and it came up obviously in the poll earlier. So security, typically when you come and visit our offices in the Philippines, you can't get into our business park or our offices without going past security and showing identification and actually being registered to attend to the building. When you walk into our physical office, our floor plates are about 2,000 square meters. We have 150 seat cafes within them. We have breakout rooms. We have full-time security staff that work, so none of our staff can walk from the locker room. So they have lockers where everything goes. All of their personal items go into lockers. To get out into the work environment, they need to go past security. On average, we have about 35 cameras in each office, so all of the office is secure. people can't get into our office without swipe cards and logging in. Our staff can't start working without logging onto their computer, which includes a facial recognition, so taking a photo and logging them into the payroll system. There's no printing allowed in our office, so if clients do need their staff to print, anytime any printing's done, it's tracked and managed through our IT team. There's no USB drives, there's no CD drives. The computers are completely locked down. So we have a complete clean desk policy. There is no files allowed on desks. There is no files in our office. They're all virtual. So when you come over our office and you walk through our office, it's completely different to the way that you would operate locally. The biggest risk that you have generally is within your own firm locally. A lot of firms, when we ask them, how do you manage your emails, your passwords, they say, look, they're on a spreadsheet. The question I'll ask you right now as well is, if you look at your firm now, who has access to your database? Can they access that database after hours with your local staff? And if the question's yes, then you've got a real risk with how you manage your login access and how you do things from a practice level. When you implement a global team on top of that, it adds over or overlays that. So there are companies like Practice Protect, if you want to Google them, that implement security systems where for anyone to log into any of your systems, they go to a central website. They then click into Intuit or Xero or any of the apps that you use, and that automatically logs them in to that system without them having to know the password. So you're able to implement that from a local level and also from a global level. So it's a most of the time when we're looking at internet security, the biggest challenge is actually with how firms deal with it from a local point of view as opposed to from a overseas point of view. Some of the questions coming through, I'll just click on, do you have any support staff for audits of non-profits? Look, the majority of the Philippines tax system is in audit, so there is a significant amount of talent, and I'm sure if one of your specifics is for non-profits, then we could certainly advertise and find someone that has done that, because in the Philippines particularly there's a lot of non-profits, and a lot of the accountants also have US tax experience. Another question that's come through, do you have a full-time person, or can they start with only a few companies and ramp up as you choose? All of the resources that we provide are dedicated full-time staff. So if you are to employ someone, you would have them on a full-time basis. But what we typically find with firms is that it's not hard to fill someone's time. If you've got a full-time resource there 40 hours a week, you can normally easily find 40 hours worth of work within your firm. Like I was mentioning before, there's more than likely a lot of work that your current staff are doing that they shouldn't be doing. So just the offshore, the last question before we get into the final parts of today's presentation, are the offshore staff direct employees or employees of a contractor? So we are the outsourced provider. So the outsourced, or TOA Global in the Philippines, is the legal employer. You have an agreement with us, and as a third party we provide the staff, but they only work for you as a dedicated resource, and they're your team members, but they're working within our office, but we're the legal employer of them. So there are some other questions that have come through that we're not going to have time to answer, but we will definitely get back to you with answers on these. So thank you for all the questions that have been sent through, and apologies that we haven't been able to get through all of them today. If you are wanting to find out more information, some of the webinar resources I mentioned that are available in the little GoToWebinar box that you have on your screens is employee video profiles. So some of our team members from the Philippines, we've got videos of them that you can learn more about their language and who they are and some of their background and skills. We've also got client video testimonials, so a range of our clients' experiences around how offshoring's been able to help their firms. There's also a range of educational webinars. So we run over 25 webinars a year, so there's a large amount of those. You can go to our website for those, and some of those are in the webinar resources as well. But if you do want to find out more, please book a consultation with us. You can go onto our website, theoutsourcedaccountant.com. There is an ebook there which is being constructed last year, which is over 80 pages of information around why get an offshore team, how to best get them up and running. And this is based on our 250 plus clients that have been doing it successfully. So it's a great resource. I highly suggest go to our website, download the ebook if you are interested in learning more about offshoring. It covers a lot of this information. And keep an eye out soon for our upcoming podcasts that are getting launched. Our first one is Successful Accounting Firms Globally. What are the best firms doing and how are they running? And also a podcast on offshoring expertise where we interview one client a week that has, like Tyler, where we mentioned earlier, what he's doing with his firm. So keep an eye out for those. So thank you, everyone, for your time today. We hope that you've got value. Please feel free to contact us at theoutsourcedaccountant.com and download these resources. And my last parting advice to you is we've seen a significant increase in outsourcing, as you can see by our growth. And if you're not on this journey now, at some point in the future, you will need to be on this journey. Much like technology, people hold off on that, but you need to join this journey at some point. We're more than happy to talk to you around how we can help you along with this journey. So thank you very much for attending. I'll hand back to Nathan to wrap up for today.
Nicholas, thank you so much for a great session. Thank you to our audience for all these questions. Very engaged, very interested. Of course, also thank you to Ross as well at the Outsourced Accountant, and thank you to Tyler over at Measured Results CPAs. Thanks again. Great session today. To our audience, thank you so much for attending.